And next up, we are going to be talking about revolutionizing health and looking at the intersection of wearables, AI, and certainly life sciences innovation. And we have an executive joining us from 3M Healthcare, Geof Hannigan. Hey, Geof, how are you?
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for
Good,
the
good,
invite to be
good
here.
to see you. And first of all, just let the audience know a little bit about your background and where in the world are you today?
Awesome, thanks. So yeah, I am in the Boston, Cambridge area today. Is where I'm based. So yeah, as you said, currently over at Solventum, which, as many of you probably know, was a recent spin out from 3M, their healthcare division. So I know we had a bit of a back and forth because I only recently joined and was at Merck before that for about 7 years. Trained as a scientist originally at the bench and then over to the computer side, and I've gotten involved in a variety of more of what I'd consider the business activities as well, including having started and ran for a couple of years a startup accelerator program with other companies such as Microsoft and McKesson. So excited to be here and excited to chat.
Hey, great to have you, and thanks for taking the time out. But first and foremost, obviously, digital is transforming healthcare, life sciences, all over the value chain. Tell us a little bit about what you've seen from your insider perspective, not only as a scientist at Merck, but also someone who was a part of incubating new systems there, and now joining 3M and Solventum, another major global change maker when it comes to the healthcare. How have you seen some of these new digital technologies really shaping up and having significant?
Yeah, absolutely. It's across the board, right? So uh, usually when I think about these, I think about the digital technologies and their applications in four primary quadrants, right? So the first I see a lot going on are what I'd call the data providers, right? So all these digital advancements, all the AI, everything, uh, nothing's going to happen without data, right? And making that data available to the researchers. And so there's been a lot of really interesting, unique ways at collecting and making data available, such as real world evidence. I know one of our companies I saw over at the studio program, Polygon Health, today were doing this in a really interesting way. So there's the RWE type of data providers. There's also what I'd consider the data generators, right? So I know it's a little bit cheating with the digital because it's in the lab usually, but again, you need it, and especially in terms of lab automation and streamlining and making data more interoperable across systems. I think there's a lot to be done there to just keep feeding that flywheel of digital. Um, there's also the digital data ops. I think we're seeing a lot in that space as far as foundational software development platforms, making things really streamlined and accessible for the data scientists and the engineers that are doing the work. And then that fourth quadrant, right? So there's the real world evidence generators, there's the in the lab, the data generation, there's the ops for the actual people doing the modeling. And then I have the fourth as maybe the more obvious one that people think about around the AI models for things like drug discovery or development applications, where you're leveraging different machine learning, AI, whatever types of models to actually do your research and come up with something to get to patients. So that's a lot of what I'm seeing in that space and how I would break it down into four key categories.
That's amazing. And all of these digital things and technologies that you've seen in the ecosystem developing over the last several years, what do you think has been the most impactful?
Ooh, the most impactful. That is a really good question. It's hard to pick, and I don't want to pick the one that always comes up of it's been AI and it's been large language models and that sort of thing. Um, I think something that has been impactful, I don't know if it's the most impactful, I think has been, as far as wearables, as far as getting the data to patients. I think making, seeing some of the technologies that come out to make that information more accessible, more, kind of streamlined applications to the patient. I think that's a particularly interesting space. And then the other one I'll throw out again is the actual development automation. I know there's a lot of companies out there, like startups, doing very innovative image analytics across just running experiments through manufacturing is very compelling and interesting. I think we've seen a lot of advancements there in the last few years. So those would be two key areas. I think we've seen some really impactful solutions without saying ChatGPT.
Yeah, no doubt. And it's interesting too, because I was talking to the head of the innovation unit at Walmart yesterday, and he had a lot of very interesting insights and perspectives about working with startups and who owns the data, where the AI is sitting in the cloud. How are you seeing, your experience at Merck and then your experience at 3M now? How are you seeing these large corporations managing the relationships with startups and being able to work with them to do a pilot, but then not giving away all their internal data to help build something that they don't own? How is that actually, coming to?
It's a great question. I mean, it's an evolving space, right? I see countless negotiations around this all the time. And, one thing I see a lot on the startup side is in other companies that are looking to maybe sell a model or a platform or capability. It's hey, look, I'm gonna go sell my model, provide my model. Then I'm gonna get their data and I'm gonna use that in my model, and that's gonna make my model better. And that's my value. Again, kind of flywheel that I'm gonna spin as far as continually generating more data to get more customers, to get more data, to get more, right? And it keeps spinning. The other side of the table is very aware of that, right? Is very aware that, well, hold on a minute, you're taking our data and you're going to use it to create some value in these models, and we're not necessarily going to see anything out of that value. That's not sounding like a good deal, right? And so that's one example that comes to mind. And there's others around security, auditing. How do you ensure that if someone says, yeah, no problem, I'll delete your data, or I'm not going to use it in my models, how do you ensure that that's actually done? There's I think a lot going on, and I wouldn't consider it standardized yet. I think that it's just coming down to still a lot of negotiations and work between these groups.
Yeah, it does seem to be moving. We've seen a lot of new terms and new types of structures around cloud escrow accounts and these third party cloud accounts where everyone has access, but they're all watching what's going on there or something. It's interesting. So final question, just to wrap up, and again, appreciate your time today. What do you believe is going to be the combination of wearables and AI where we can really make a difference with patient outcomes? Because you see all these wearables with all this data, it's all over the place. But what's your perspective? Because you've really had some inside view on this stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a lot to unpack with that question. I think as we see wearables become more powerful and able to measure more things and more accessible, I do think, again, probably fairly obvious, right? More data, great. We'll be able to measure more things. Great. We'll be able to plug those into the algorithms. Awesome. So I do think we will continue to see that. And I do think that these technologies will continue to be more accessible to folks. I think the reach is interesting as well, right? So there's different ways to approach clinical trials, and there's a lot of effort going into making clinical trials more accessible to people that don't live necessarily in an area that it's easy to get to, a major medical center, or even a medical center, right? Especially in very rural areas. And so I do think, and I see that happening, right, where things like wearables are making it easier for patients to participate in programs. It doesn't necessitate quite as many times needing to come back to the hospital or the clinic or wherever you're going for that study or for your care. So I think that's the most exciting space that I'm seeing it, to be honest.
This has been great, Geof. Thank you so much for joining us today. And remember, everybody around the world who is watching the program and on YouTube, link in with Geof with Solventum
Yeah, I can
3M.
put my thing. Yeah,
And
put
we
my
did it
link
for you
in the
already.
chat here if folks want to.
Yeah.
Oh, you
Well,
did it.
thank you very
Perfect.
much.
Wonderful. Thank you.
All right. We'll talk to
All
you
right.
later. Take
Thanks.
care.